Niccolò Machiavelli believed that an infertile or barren region forces people to be hardworking and disciplined, and less prone to discord because there's less wealth to fight over. On the other hand, fertile lands can be a curse for the people that live in them because it makes them lazy. Reality, of course, is more complex than that, but if we look at the world's richest countries, we see that many of them have no natural resources, while among the poorest ones are some of the richest in oil or minerals. When a country discovers a massive natural resource like oil or natural gas and starts exporting it in huge volumes, something counterintuitive happens. International buyers pay in dollars or other foreign currencies. The exporting companies then need to convert those dollars into the local currency to pay workers, suppliers, and taxes. This creates a sudden increase in demand for the local currency. When demand rises, the local currency becomes stronger. For example, if before the resource boom, $1 equals 10 units of local currency, let's call it dinar, and a locally made car costs 100,000 dinars to produce and sell, for a foreign buyer, you need to convert $10,000 into 100,000 dinars in order to buy it. After the resource boom, the currency appreciates. Now, $1 equals only 6.67 dinars. The local currency became stronger. The same car still costs 100,000 dinars to make, but a foreign buyer now has to convert $15,000 to receive 100,000 dinars needed to buy the car. Suddenly your cars, textiles, electronics and so on are 50% more expensive for the rest of the world. At the same time, imports become much cheaper. If a TV cost $500, before the boom, that TV would cost 5,000 dinars. After the currency appreciates, the same TV now costs only 3,335 dinars. Local people can now buy imported clothes, rice, cars, and machinery much more cheaply than before. This is called Dutch disease. The country's manufacturing and agricultural sectors become uncompetitive. They cannot sell abroad because their goods are now too expensive, and at home they will be flooded by cheaper imports, local industries becoming unable to compete on price with the imported goods. Over time, factories close, farmers go out of business, and jobs disappear in these sectors. The economy becomes increasingly dependent on the resource industry alone. When resource prices are high, the country lives well, but when prices eventually fall, and they always do, the price for commodities like oil are notoriously volatile. The country enters an economic crisis. The Dutch disease is only part of the problem. When a country suddenly gets rich from resources, it often changes the mentality of the nation. The easy money creates complacency. The government feels less pressure to improve education. Companies see little reason to innovate when importing everything is cheap and profitable. Young people prefer government jobs instead of learning difficult skills. Nigeria is a good example of how natural resources can harm a nation. In the 1960s, Nigeria had a diverse export base: cocoa, groundnuts, palm oil. Once oil was discovered, the Dutch disease ruined everything. The currency, called naira, became so strong that farming and local manufacturing became unprofitable. Today, oil represents 90% of Nigerian exports. Then add the impressive population growth of Nigeria. If your oil revenue stays the same each year, or occasionally shrinks when global prices drop, but the number of people doubles every few decades, the slice each person gets gradually shrinks. This leads to poverty despite the billions flowing in. This is the opposite from countries like Japan and South Korea that became rich and powerful without having any natural resources. These countries have almost zero oil, gas, and mineral wealth. By Machiavelli's logic, they were forced to be disciplined. Because they couldn't dig money out of the ground, they had to rely on the brains of their citizens. They invested heavily in education, infrastructure, and high-value manufacturing. Today, Japan and South Korea don't export raw materials. They buy them from somewhere else cheap, process them, and sell finished products at much higher prices. The Democratic Republic of the Congo sells a kilogram of raw cobalt for a few dollars. Japan or Korea buys that cobalt, processes it, and puts it into a smartphone battery worth hundreds of dollars. Looking at sub-Saharan Africa, we see that the level of natural resources a country has and its GDP per capita are not correlated. Countries without significant natural resources like Kenya have achieved relative prosperity by focusing on agriculture, services and tech hubs, like Silicon Savannah in Nairobi. Among the poorest African nations are some of the most resource-rich. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is one of the richest countries on earth in terms of raw materials. It has cobalt, coltan, diamonds, gold, yet it is one of the poorest in GDP per capita. Just as Machiavelli warned, in those resource-rich African countries, the mineral wealth has often been the cause for terrible civil wars. Armed groups fight to control the territory because of its riches, leading to endless civil war and preventing the state from ever developing. Machiavelli didn't believe that fertile land had to lead to ruin. He argued that the ideal state is one settled in a rich and productive region, but governed by wise laws that counteract the natural tendency toward laziness and greed. Basically, the government must create an artificial necessity to keep the people and the economy healthy. When Norway discovered the massive Ekofisk oil field in 1969, they could have behaved like many other nations. Spend the money immediately, expand the public sector, and let the local currency skyrocket. This would have hurt their traditional industries like fishing and timber. Norway was smart by choosing not to spend their wealth. Instead, they established the government pension fund global. Instead of injecting oil dollars directly into the domestic economy, they invested that money into international stocks, bonds, and real estate. Because the money was invested abroad in foreign currencies like dollars and euros rather than being converted into Norwegian krone, they prevented a massive surge in demand for their local currency. This kept the krone stable and allowed their non-oil exporters to remain competitive. The government created a law that allowed them to only spend a small fraction of the fund's expected return, not the capital itself, on the national budget. One of the world's largest diamond producers, Botswana, could easily have fallen into the resource curse. Instead, since independence in 1966, it has avoided the trap through prudent management. The government did not overspend during booms, saved revenues, maintained fiscal discipline, and invested heavily in infrastructure and education. As a result, Botswana transformed from one of the poorest countries in the world into an upper middle income nation with one of the highest GDP per capita levels in sub-Saharan Africa. So, if the Dutch disease is so dangerous, should countries just leave their oil, gold, and minerals into the ground? Of course not. The real secret isn't avoiding wealth, it's managing it wisely. Use resource revenues for investment, not just consumption. Build infrastructure, improve education, and strengthen other sectors of the economy. Do it gradually to prevent the currency from skyrocketing and destroying local industries. The truth is that while this sounds simple in theory, in practice it's actually difficult. Politicians are pressured to spend the money immediately on subsidies, public sector jobs, and projects that buy votes. Citizens often prefer immediate cash rather than long-term investments. When the inevitable problems arrive, factory closures, lost competitiveness, or a price crash, the same leaders are usually long gone, leaving the next generation to clean up the mess. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next video.